Good evening, participants. A warm welcome on the fourth day of Faculty Development Program. I, Jai Patel, the co-coordinator, and our main coordinator, Dr. Kavita Chaudhary, welcome all of you. Today's resource person is from United Kingdom. Juliana Sissons is a nightwear designer and a senior lecturer in fashion and textile design. She teaches in Nottingham University, London, College of Fashion, Northbrook College, Sussex. She is also the pattern cutting tutor at the University of Brighton. Before gaining her PGCE, she studied fashion and textile with the business studies at the University of Brighton, gaining an outstanding creative achievement award and international student knitted textile award in 2003. Her graduate collection sold through her agent to a range of exclusive stores in London and Los Angeles. This enabled her to set up her own nightwear label, selling small production runs and the individual orders to existing clients. She was awarded the Crafts Council Business Development Award in 2005, which not only helped to push her the work forward, but with the acquisition of more advanced machinery, but also to open up a new and exciting design opportunities. Along with having the recently been fashion designer in resident at Vienna Museum, she has written 2 books on nightwear design for Bloomsbury publication in 2010 and 2019, and is currently developing work for a book about the different approaches to shape making within the educational setting, including the case studies from the series of master classes and devised for the University of Brighton and delivered at several international universities. She is currently working on a project with the Newcastle University, researching and conducting yarns to explore how she can bring these elements into her work. She has published over 30 research papers and attended many conferences in UK and abroad. She has received 12 awards, including in 2020, the Early Research Career Funding Awards to the Nottingham Trent University for anatomy. She has worked in the fashion design industries over 42 years and has taught for 33 years in various colleges and universities in UK and abroad. So there is a lot more to add in our profile, but considering the time constraints, now I would now request Professor Juliana to start her presentation and enlighten the audience. Over to you, Juliana.
Thank you very much. That's a really lovely introduction. Thank you. So the project that I'm going to show you is well, it's a project we've been running for a few years now, and it's really to share with you how we're teaching here at Nottingham Trent University and how this project collaborates with different universities, so the students can collaborate with different students and learn from each other. But I'll go into that now. I'm going to share my slides. Let's hope I can still do that. Seems right. Share my entire screen. Let's see where we are with this. So share. Yes, it seems to be working now. Thank goodness. So, oh, hang on. What do I need? Oh, yes, I know I need to. Not quite there. Hang on. Okay. Can everybody see that now?
Yes, it is visible.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Because I can't see you now. I can only see the screen.
Yes, but we can see your presentation. You can.
Okay. If you do need to speak to me, just speak up loud because I won't see you otherwise.
All right, sure.
Okay, so, well, hello, everybody. This presentation gives you an overview of the Rebel Tartan project and shares examples of work produced by students globally. It's a creative response to climate change crisis. The project promotes sustainable design thinking and offers innovative solutions for sustainable production and circular economy. Right, just check how to. Okay. So, and I'm sure you all know this, but we would like, we speak to the students to give them a starting point about what do they think sustainability is. So what is sustainable design? And to bring, to highlight that there are these three interwoven elements: the environmental, the social, and then economic. So to be thinking about how do textiles and the fashion industry impact on the environment? Are we working in fair and ethical ways? But then again, the other thing as well, which is often forgotten with the students, is the potential for growth and profitability of the industry, and to try and make the big businesses look at this and to try and think how they can think of offers, to offer solutions for the big companies to work in a more sustainable way. They may try it, but they're not going to do it unless they're going to be making money. And the students seem to, that is one of the challenges for the students to try and get across, really. And we also draw attention to the Rana Plaza disaster, the garment factory in Bangladesh, which was considered to be one of the deadliest garment factory disasters in history. Who's responsible? How can we stop this from happening again? So clothes have been getting cheaper, and fast fashion means that we're buying more. We don't know where to get rid of it, even trying to dispose of it. People don't want these clothes. So there's growing concerns about poor working conditions, and the pollution that the clothing contributes to our greenhouse gases, and then to the climate change and the climate change crisis. So how can we reduce the environmental impact of fashion and textiles? We, think about the source, the fibers, the fabrics, the actual materials, and then thinking about how to make the design of the clothing that maybe has lower impact on waste. Maybe the clothing is made to last longer, or it's made to the clothing is diverse, so it can change sizes, and it's made to be adaptable. Thinking about how the customer cares for their clothing. So thinking about adding little notes or little poems or little bits of information with the clothing to make the clothing more special, and to explain how the clothing should be looked after. And then also thinking about working with upcycled fabrics and ways of how to dispose of these garments afterwards as well. So so design decisions can have an 80% impact on sustainability. So we ask the students to consider design for durability and longevity, thinking about large hems and large seams that can be taken out. So example, like Savile Row tailoring, clothing's made to last. It's made, a suit is made to be made and then handed down through the family. It has a meaning to it, and it has much more the sentimental meaning to the garment. So it's not just, it's looked after and not thrown away, and kept for a long time. And designing for adaptability and versatility. So we've had clothing that sort of a top can turn into a bag, or a bag can turn into a pair of trousers, and so on. A coat can turn into a jacket and skirt, so that there are different versatile ways of wearing the garments, so that you might then buy less of them. So, and then to design for reuse so that it's used again, so it can be changed into something. So, whether it's a coat, then maybe can be reused, made into something else afterwards. And then obviously design for repair and restyle. So looking at hand sewing skills and all the hand techniques, the grafting together and darning of holes. And then also think about raw materials, that the textiles for the dyeing, natural dyeing, colouring and finishing material, finishing off edges, and just to think about the materials that they're working with. I do think change is emerging, and I think it's more the smaller designers, the graduates who are working in slow fashion, and I think and recycle schemes. And I think these students, these graduates, although they're not earning a lot of money, they're building their own brands, and using this sustainability as a way to promote their work. So the Rebel Tartan project, this came about, I think it was, how many years ago was it? 2015, I think. It was myself and Giles Jackson and Gary Don, who came in from the UN Scotland House, Alex Brownless from Arts Thread, and that's a website that promotes graduate work. It's a growing international collaboration, leading fashion, arts and textiles programs. Students confront political and social issues in highly creative ways, looking at a range of contemporary tartans promoting social causes. So following the success in 2015, when the students looked at human trafficking issues first, inspired by the Blue Heart tartan, their feedback was that students appreciated more activist project and wanted to communicate more meaningful ideas through design. In 2021, the Rebel Tartan project shifted its focus to climate change, inspired by the Keeling tartan, and we had the opportunity to show work in Scotland as part of the International Climate Change Conference, COP26. So, in fact, that is more or less what I've just said here. The Keeling tartan is only one of the tartans, which in fact I have more of those to show you in a minute. This whole project started when I was contacted by Giles Jackson from the Liberation Kilt Company, and he was asking me if there was something that we could do to bring in students and promote the tartans, but promote the causes behind the tartans. So this is myself and Giles. So the Keeling tartan itself here, this symbolises a wholesale shift in the energy basis of civilization, from fossil fuels, which is seen in the grey and white track, to 100% clear energy, which is seen in the green and yellow track. The Rebel Tartan project consists of a number of universities following a collaborative project brief. We give them a brief to get them started off. And with the inspiration, it springs up from the Liberation Kilt tartans, registered by UN House Scotland. So the inspiration is, the tartans are just inspiration. They don't have to actually make tartans. It's just the cause behind the tartan. So a lot of research, we're expecting a lot of research from the students. So the first one is the Blue Heart tartan, highlighting human trafficking. The two in the middle are the Keeling tartans, highlighting climate change. And then the yellow one is the Yamaguchi tartan, highlighting nuclear disarmament. We saw the potential, a great to collaborate project with a project for students, and I initially wrote a brief and introduced it to 2 universities, initially Nottingham, Trent University and the University of Brighton. And since then it's grown in university numbers. And in 2021, we had UN Scotland House and Arts Thread on board, as well as 2 universities in Scotland. And then in 2022, Pearl Academy joined us and Donghua University. And then next year, we've also got FIT from America, from New York. And so it's growing very, even though it's a very slow thing, it's growing in a very natural way. It's just sort of moving in its own, it's evolving in its own way. So listed here are the universities who have been involved over the years, many taking part for 2 or 3 years at a time. And so in our second year of working with the Keeling Tartan, we and with the climate change theme, we had the opportunity to go to COP26, the international climate change conference, and then Arts Thread gave the students an exposure on their website as a showcase page, which was really good exposure for the graduates, really good. So we now have more pictures here of that actual conference. So this was COP 2026, and you can see it. We were there as part of a conference about leadership for sustainable planet, and then our students were lucky enough to have an exhibition within the area. These students here are from Manchester Metropolitan, and the work there, some of it was sent over from Japan, from Bunker College of Art, and then students from Scotland as well. This is the University of Dundee. And so there was a real mixture of things, from clothing to fabrics to sketchbooks to designs. And it was a really lovely way for the students to be involved with a conference that was, a highly recognised conference. And this one here, Ophelia White, the tartan there, she wove that herself, and it's what's very clever about it is that it moves and expands. So the one little piece of tartan can expand and become a large piece of a large garment, which is very interesting for sustainability. We've also got Bunker here, some of the and Glasgow School of Art, which I think that tartany dress thing was painted on recycled plastics. So the Keeling curve, the tartan itself is named after the Keeling curve, a graph which plots the ongoing change in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. The tartan is named in honour of the late Charles Keeling. His findings provided the first concrete evidence of increasing carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere since 1958. It's also important for the Liberation Kilt Company to have all the tartans woven in Scotland and in a sustainable way. So these have been woven by Butte Fabrics and Andrew Elliott Limited, which, as you can see, it's harping back to the craft's original ways of working, all in a very sustainable methods. The project has an overriding sustainable approach, with collaboration and knowledge exchange as a key process. Students have used in-depth research to explore design possibilities, forming teams of students, groups of students, and within each team producing a collaborative statement. Projects in the past have included themes of identity and loss, mental health and well-being, unity and solidarity, forced labour, circular economy, make, do and mend, and life underwater, etc., to name a few. The aim is to communicate to a wider audience and to start discussions between universities. The idea is to respond to the tartan and its meaning, and in this case, to highlight the importance of climate change, not necessarily with a tartan outcome. Also, print should translate the meaning and highlight climate change in some way. So this example print highlights the climate crisis and a ticking time bomb through the images of cogs and wheels and windmills. Students are often put into mixed teams. So one whole group or team of students, one could be a knitter, one could be a weaver, one could be a printer, one could be embroidery, or one could be fabric manipulation. The textile students can sometimes just come up with whole collections of textiles, a mix of all those things that then come together to be a new collection that all work together collaboratively. And then sometimes if we have a fashion student in there, then we get garments made as well. So responses are varied and unique, and it all has the meaning at the heart of the translation, the meaning of the tartan. The colour palettes are developed from the research, actually, from the research that comes through in the sketchbooks, but also can come through in from the tartan as well. So life below water, themes can be picked up from the United Nations climate change goals, and then the students' personal response comes from that. So, for instance, we have had life below water and life on land, but life below water's focuses on plastic pollution in the ocean, the fishing communities being affected by polluted water, coral reef, garments designed for natural disaster due to rising sea levels, biodegradable garments, looking at the life cycle of garments, natural dyes, seeds spun into yarns for later growth, and zero waste pattern cutting. So it's very, very wide, it's left really open for the students. I suppose the thing that binds them together is the fact that they're in a team and they pick on one theme. So if they're picking life below water, then it would all be about that. So then it comes together. They share their research as well, and they meet up in team each week to share their research. They may go off first of all and get some research and look at colours and bring that back. Then they might arrange a colour palette, and then from that they'll go off again and start working practical. So they might do samples, make samples and drawings and collages using the same colour palette. Then they'll all come back again and meet again, and they'll share what they've got, and it will start to look like a team thing because they're all using the same colour palette, they're using the same theme. And then after that, they start to edit their work and start to build sort of mood boards and sheets of paper with the information on, design sheets, and then decide what is going to be their final outcome. And if it's product designer, it could be any product. It could be a bag, or it could be hats, or it could be clothing. If it's a fashion designer, or if it's just textiles, they can just offer a collection of fabrics. So it's very, very open. I've got a few here now to some examples to show you. This is Eli McIntosh from Manchester Metropolitan in the UK. She's started looking at life below water. And so she started looking at plastic pollution. So first of all, very, very, very tentatively, but just drawing plastic and starting to think about it, reading about it, collecting elements, thinking about the colour, thinking about how she's going to start building that. And then, so thinking about the plastic pollution, and then moved on to the effects of small fishing communities. So she started to look at fishing communities and how the rising water might affect them. And here we've got sort of stacks of buildings on top of each other, how they're doing. She's looked at washing. So she started to collage, take photographs, or use photographs here in this case, and draw something that looks like drapes which just come from the fish, from the washing. So she's looking at built up environments. Here again, built up environments, the washing, how the communities are living and how pollution is affecting them. So we've got washing day and climate action now. These pieces of work here can be turned into a print, either a print that can go on the wall as a picture, or print that can be printed as a fabric. So some initial samples here as well. So she's tried to translate those images into collage of fabric here. So she's looking at the work that she's done. She's done the collage, she's drawn from the collage, and now she's using fabrics to which are inspired by her research. So small fabric textile samples, really, which has then led to some interesting developments with print, drape, and weave here. And I think the drape, although they're not finished garments, they sort of do give off it's a prototype, it's an idea that could be taken further. It looks like there's a bag there or something on one side possibly, and then weaving as well and printing, keeping the colour schemes all together and keeping the essence of the ideas, this sort of very maximalism, junked up, stacked up, lots and lots of things going on in each of these samples. And then she tried exploring tartan effects as well, just because she could. She just thought that would be another thing that she could do. So another student here, Amy Conway, has looked at the effects of pollution on the coral. So also, again, life below water. And she's looked at marine life in general and coral bleaching. So she started to bring some ideas together, initially responding through weave and then taking her work into block printing, exploring craft skills. So looking at going back to the basics in building samples. Now we're looking a little bit at fashion here. This is Anne Mary. She's looked into inflatable clothing and offers solutions for flood situations. So she's got removable utility vests. So at this point, does it matter? It doesn't matter whether it actually works or not. It's the starting point of what would happen if you were in a flood solution. If you were in a flood situation, what would you like to be wearing at that time? And also, can it be made into some sort of fashion collection too? So there's a few things going on there. So I know we're turning a really serious theme into something that well, I don't know, it can slightly get comical. In these, you think, well, where are these coming from? What would anybody wear this? But actually that doesn't matter at the moment. She goes on to design a number of fashion lineups, fixtures and fittings, and a mixture of airbed clothing and breathing apparatus. So in a way, if you look at, some of those trousers, I think actually would be wearable as a fashion item, even though she's being quite, she's really thinking about, so she's using the flood situations to inspire a fashion garment, really, but also drawing attention to it as well. Not lightening it in any way, really. She goes further here to investigate how much air is needed to keep the body fully afloat. So through the calculations of air in different shaped bags, half immersed in water. So it's quite interesting. Then she starts to do sort of little samples and sort of little studies of how she could possibly make this a real thing. So it's still just prototypes, but and again here testing, she goes into create life vests as part of her investigation from recycled bags. So they're like little specimens, and there were a lot of these sheets. I just picked a few here, which I thought were interesting, but leading to more fashion lineups, this time with the use of geometrics and zero waste cutting, squares and rectangles with gathers and toggles and fastenings, zero waste sleeve there that can vary in size. So the sustainability angle here is that it can be worn by different sized bodies, extending sizes of the garments to make it more sustainable. Another project from the same girl, another outcome that she thought of was the seed in the fabric, investigates the idea of clothing that could be made from biodegradable materials, which can then be buried and turned into plants at the end of use. Small seeds are inserted in the cloth or spun into the yarn. And these are some of the very first starting points of her bringing her ideas together. She then explores which fabrics are most suitable to hold the seeds and which seeds are most suitable to weave in when burying garments. The seeds go back to the earth along with the biodegradable fabrics. She also mentions that the customer's allergy to seeds should be considered. So quite an in-depth investigation. She explores how seeds can be inserted into the fabrics through yarns and interfacings and padding. And then she starts to test. So the weaving samples on handmade loom. I think she did some spinning of different yarns as well. But she then ended up producing these beautiful woven samples, which sort of give you an indication of the aesthetic that you'd get from this. A number of ideas are thrown out as prototypes, really, to offer solutions and highlight the climate change crisis. And when looking at life above water, this has all come from life below water, but another student, from looking at life above water, she came up with the idea that one student, she offered clothes with tent pegs to fasten themselves down in case of a hurricane. So obviously that's a bit funny or a bit silly, but it could lead to something more serious or something more real. It's just getting those ideas out really first. And seeing even how silly they might be, what could come from that. So we're just at a certain time. I don't know where we are now. I think should we just carry on, or would anybody like a little break?
You can carry on.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll carry on. I think I'll just carry on then to the end, and then we can have a little break, or maybe then think about what we want to talk about. Okay, I'll carry on. But this is now going into pattern cutting. And these are more focused on the fashion designers, not so much on the textile designers. So whilst the textile students have workshops in natural dyeing and handcrafts and weaving, etc., the fashion students have workshops in pattern cutting and zero waste pattern cutting, and they work in very small scale. So we start from small scale. And as I said before we started, this actually came about through teaching online and working in small scale, and then building up afterwards, and just scaling up to the right size later. But really not just looking at fashion and garment shaping in a totally different way, forgetting about the normal patterns that we use, the dress patterns, and but we're not completely forgetting, because you've still got to keep in mind the sizes. You could use a dress block or a bodice block to help you to see the size from the neck to the waist to the hip and so on, and to give you those sort of to help you to understand how big or how small working in geometrics needs to be. So if you're working in squares and rectangles, you've got to still consider where the armholes are, or the neck, and so on. So the fashion students take on a different approach to the project. Some interested in zero waste pattern cutting, exploring methods of making clothes without waste, working with geometric squares, rectangles, triangles, multiplying and subtracting elements to create simple silhouettes. So here, these shapes here might start to suggest part garment pieces, like a collar or a cuff, and by multiplying and mirror imaging the picture of the images, it starts to develop module garment shapes. So for me, that top one, the top one on the right hand side looks like a collar and shoulders, although you'd have to adapt to that. Also, the one in the middle, the first two pieces mirror imaged, that could be some sort of fastening at the front of a jacket, and because you can see it's on a striped paper, so that could be bias cut, so it could go round the back of the body. So you could start by working in squares. This is just 2 squares, and adding more squares. If you're working on a stand, you could build on the stand the shape and the silhouette of the body. So it doesn't have to be big and wide and baggy. It could also be fitted as well. Another starting point is playing with patterns from geometrics. So really starting from a sort of Bauhaus movement way of taking ideas from 2D to 3D, building blocks like Lego blocks, just building shapes. I've asked them to not think about fashion or clothing while they're doing this, but to just build shapes, something that you can get into. If you need to be able to get into it, and you can go through it like a tunnel or like a package. So not like a collage, basically. But this one is George Smart, and this is an example. Designer George Smart has furthered his designs through digital design. So by taking 1 or 2 pieces of paper that he's manipulated, he's then took it to digital, to the computer, and mirror imaged it and so on. And by doing that, you start to see something quite different and quite sort of could become garments if you see it in a large scale. I mean, this is almost like a robot here, but you could almost make trousers like that. You could try and think about how those trousers would look with pleats and so on. And the collar at the front, the jacket, it could be a jacket. So yeah, it is quite interesting to see that you start to look in a different way at these samples and start to think of them as clothing. And this one could be the front of a belt, or the front of a garment, or it could even be part of a sleeve. So you know, it's then you'd start to take these into fabric again and build up from there. And this is another little one which looks, it could be a part garment, or it could be a whole garment. It could be a top and your arms come out at each side, or it could be a pocket. So thinking about it in different scale as well. So some of these are really these are just very, very quick here. And these ones are stand work. It's a small stand. It's a half scale stand, sorry. So it sits on the desk, creating silhouettes from geometric shapes on the stand. Inspiration for part garment details, exploring silhouette and practicality. So the practicality would come later, but starting to think about the body and how it actually works across the body. So we had some boy students here, so working on this one. So you can see how they've then started to take it into the sleeve there and across the shoulder. On that little mannequin right in the middle is quite a good one. Some of it looks a bit messy at this moment, but they're looking at things. He was looking at how it could change at the elbow, maybe exploring movement and fit, and keeping things very open to interpretation, and playing with the presentation as well of the garment or the prototype. So these are very, very early stages, but it's a good starting point to then think about what you'd like to do next with it. So just before we finish, I'd like to then go show you a little bit about the Blue Heart Tartan, which highlighting human trafficking. And this started, this was in the earlier years of this project. We worked with the Blue Heart Tartan, named after the United Nations Blue Heart campaign against human trafficking. And it crosses over so much into the climate change. I mean, they're very much merged together, a lot of the themes, to be honest, symbolizing collective heartbeat of those who are trafficked, providing another way to show solidarity against this form of modern slavery. This is in 2018, the first workshop. This is in Manchester, Metropolitan University, when the students came together in a group, and they all got split off into the groups initially on the first briefing, and then they go together to mind map, think of their ideas, think of the themes, and come up with a joint theme. And this is what they, and really this is early on when we started to do this. This is how it started, and so that then they could do this between them as a group and start researching on their laptops at the same time before they go off and do work on their own. This one is a slide. This slide's come from Nicola Dean, who researched the incident when the Nigerian schoolgirls were captured by the Islamic terrorist group. She mixed this with the military combat vests and clothing. And here you can see the girls wrapped in blankets to cover their school uniforms. She used colour palettes from the schoolgirls' home environments, mixed with camouflage to inspire a collection of weave designs. But she then went on and made some really fabulous bags, a whole collection of wonderful bags. And it's if people can connect with, if the label on it is saying the Rebel Tartan Project or, human trafficking or climate change, it gives people a conversation, a starting point to talk about the work. This is a little one here from Hannah Dunn, some possible design outcomes, recreating a tartan-like grid through weave with the use of recycled shopping bags. I just wanted to show you these because it's just to show you how varied it can be. In 2016, fashion response with prints from print work from the students at the University of Brighton, and you can see underneath the print, underneath the tartan dress, the first one is the palm oil print and the second one is the diamond trade print. So it's all around human trafficking, but it's worn with the Blue Heart tartan dress from NTU students, Nottingham Trent University students, smocked with safety pins, and images taken by MA photography students. So it's bringing a wider collaborative process to different universities and people from different courses, print and fashion and photography. And then we did a few photographs at the V&A Museum. Here's Scarlett modelling the Blue Heart tartan dress with the palm oil print by Holly Gillen, and Maud modelling the Blue Heart tartan dog jacket, a knitted bag and hat by students at NTU, Nottingham Trent University. So I think that was the first year we did it, actually, of these ones. So really lovely to see, or it was the first or second year, really lovely to see those ones again. We've had students teaming up again, and from two different year groups here, from Manchester, Norwich and Nottingham universities in the UK, to campaign at Nottingham train station with posters and leaflets, which were printed and made from students at Norwich. And then this was something different again, a costume course at the Wimbledon School of Art. It's a costume course degree, so these students all got into groups again. It's a performance outcome. This is the loss of childhood. This is also the loss of childhood. But you can see there, so there's all sorts of different ways of portraying the loss of childhood, but also that tartan on the side was that sort of crisscross pattern. I think that was painted onto plastic. So they did bring in some tartan elements as well into this performance. And then, yeah, I think one outfit or one costume was made from each group. So they all worked on their research and their sketchbooks, and then one garment was made from the group. And I think the groups were smaller, probably 2 or 3 people in a group for this. And then I think nearly finally, the magazine outcome here. Another example altogether, a presentation board responding to the theme of child trafficking from students at LISA in Paris, who came over to England to present their work to us in 2019. And they came up with a book, magazine, so it was all magazine pages. So another whole thing, very dark project that was. It was very nice. It was in a way nice to have a change and go into climate change. Although we have noticed that there is a merge between the two. Anyway, just now then, in conclusion, the V&A exhibition in 2018-2019 in the UK, Fashion from Nature, inspired a new generation of students to think more deeply into who is responsible for the climate change, for the climate crisis, I mean, and how can we reduce the environmental impact of fashion and textiles. Fashion industry has a lot to answer for with this, and this exhibition was amazing, and it really did inspire a new generation of students to look into this. It was a great exhibition. It looked at the past and how feathers and whalebone was used, and pearl and pearls and things like that, and then there were and how we took from nature. And then there was another element where it was giving back to nature. So it was the more modern designers, today's designers, doing looking at things like make, do and mend and so on. So there was a real contrast of taking and then giving back to nature, which was great. So it was great to see and really inspiring. So how can we use design as a communication tool to highlight climate change, to gain an understanding of cultural political influences, to investigate traditional craft skills, to inform innovative collections of fashion and textiles? Sorry, I didn't say that very well. Yeah, and then to gain an understanding of sustainable and ethical practice, and to communicate and to share design practice. The whole communication is really, really important. I think the students have really enjoyed communicating with different students from different backgrounds and different countries, different universities, from different courses. And then finally, so the Rebel Tartan project is a growing international project in collaboration with leading fashion and textile and art programs. It's inspired by the meanings behind the activist themes of Liberation Kilt Company. We won an award this year for a Teams award at the Nottingham Trent University, which was lovely to have that that to be recognised. So really, and just to finish off, to the whole project and the whole thing we're trying to do is to use conversation and design possibilities within education and industry to make a sustainable change globally. So that's me. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for listening. I think I'll stop sharing now and see where we are at. Hang on. Ooh. Oh yeah, I'm back. Great. I hope that wasn't too long, and I hope that wasn't boring. I hope that was interesting for you.
That was interesting. I mean, there is a lot to learn from each of the slides and each of the pictures, I would say.
I know. And I only picked little elements. There was so much. You're really good ones.
Yeah.
I must look for the one that's got the tent pegs, see if I can find that one again, because that was great. But can you see how some of the things were quite humorous? And we wanted to say to students, have hope. You know, don't let it all doom and gloom. It needs to have hope and be bright and light to, you know, so that we can move forward.
Yeah, even I'm not from the fashion, I'm from the product and the industrial design, but there is a lot of ideas that I got from the presentation itself that can be used in product. It can be used, you know, so that was really interesting. Now I request our participants, any questions that would be here from you. You can also type in chat box also.
Well, I'll have a look in that box. Ooh, I've done something. I've lost you. Hang on, where are you? There you go. I've lost you again. I think for me, I'm very passionate about the project. And because I've seen it grow very, very slowly. And you know, and actually it's given me a chance as a person to meet lots of different people as well through the project. Students and staff and universities, you know, and I think the fact that we got a chance to display at COP26 was really important because that's acknowledgement from the United Nations as well, and also the fact that we won the award was acknowledgement from the university that it's an ongoing concern, good project to use. But I think mainly the feedback we get from the students is amazing. And I think when we started doing the project, the students came back with things like it was really good to do something political or so that the project had meaning behind it. And it made them think about things and research something that was not comfortable to research. It wasn't very comfortable researching about human trafficking. And also, you know, even finding things out about climate change and what's going on in the world around you, everywhere around the world, and how people are being affected by climate change. It's been really eye-opening for the students. And I think some of them, although they then turn it into a fashion project, it's still got that meaning, that sense of meaning behind it, that seriousness. Eventually, you know, it's quite good to bring out these silly ideas too, but because they can be developed into something that's real. Yeah. Has anybody got any questions about the way it's taught or anything? I mean, I think the discussions, the fact that we have these discussions is also good. The fact that the students come together and we discuss it. And I think that is actually a really big thing. The fact that they're discussing it and talking about it, then they go home, they tell their parents about it. You know, and then it's a wider thing, you know, it becomes talked about a lot more. I mean, I remember when we first came back to the university and we still had plastic knives and forks, plastic straws. They've all gone now. But I mean, it's a slow thing that, you know, it's really slow. But unless everybody's noticing, the more people that are noticing, the better things will just gradually change, hopefully. Oh, there's a... What was that message? There's a message there.
Yeah, there's some questions in the...
Okay. So thank you for the interesting presentation. We talk a lot about climate change and sustainability these days, but do you see the changes taking effect on the ground? It's a hard one, isn't it? It's hard. I think we're at early stages still. I mean, I'm not the expert on climate change, but you know, to think about all the fish that we're eating. If you eat fish, that it's all got plastic. You know, they say we've got plastic in us now as well from eating and just through breathing. It's in the air. So I don't know. I think I'd like to be positive. And I do think that things are starting to move in the right direction. I think older people, like my mother, for instance, I think she used to think it was all like, oh, it's all nonsense. It's not really happening. People that generation, and I think even she's changed now and started doing recycling bins and so on. And that's something, because of the older generation they don't, I don't know, they don't take on new things as easy, do they? Whereas your generation, or the younger generation, the children, you know, the students, they're all, I mean, they're hopefully now where it's coming through in the next generation of designers, because then they'll go and work for a company, and then they'll insist on, hopefully, in, you know, natural dyes and so on, and you know, more sustainable materials to use, and it will become more commonplace, but I think it'll take a long time. I mean, we're already taking cups into, you know, taking our own cup to the canteen rather than having another cup, you know, things like that, all sorts of things like that. And buying, the way we buy things, do we need to buy things all the time? Do we buy less and make it last longer? And I think it is being seen on the ground, actually. But I think you just have to know where to look. And I don't know whether it's making much difference yet, because it's too small. We need everybody doing it, don't we, to make a real difference. I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's everyone needs to be in the same way that, yeah, right, to follow, otherwise the things won't be possible. That's true.
Yeah.
There's another question also.
So the exploration shared, very, very unique and interesting. However, it seems like a paradox that we still create more fashion. True. You're absolutely true. But I suppose we do need to still wear clothes. I mean, myself personally, I've got a certain amount of clothes, and I've just wear them all the time. That's it. I don't really buy more clothes. I've got one or two designs in the same different colors. I don't feel the need to go out and buy clothes all the time. However, I suppose what you're saying, yes, we do need to make clothes. More people are being born, and yeah, it would be great to have. We need to really, really highlight those charity shops and make different types of fashion, so that it's not just all mass-produced cheap fashion that just gets worn once and thrown away. I think it's okay to wear clothes, obviously, and I think it's okay to make clothes. It's just the way we do it, and not much. We need much less of it. We've just exploded into wanting so much stuff, and we don't need to have all that stuff. It's like going back to a simpler life. And I think if the fashion industry, we're creating more fashion, but I think what we're trying to say to the students is, you know, keep it small. Yeah, we're not going to earn as much money probably as those big mass production places, big mass production companies, but somehow we've got to work, you know, separately to those, and hopefully they'll change in time. We've got, are sustainable solutions like slow fashion and recycling being taken up by the fashion industry? You see, this here, it's hard to say. There are some designers who are doing it, sort of like, you know, Stella McCartney, and Burberry had a little thing. They're doing it, but you don't know whether it's a tick box whether they're just saying, oh, we're very sustainable because we're doing this, we're sustainable because we're doing this. I think there's a nod in the right direction, but I don't think they're doing enough yet. So it's being taken up by the fashion industry. What we need is it to be taken up by the big factories, the mass production factories. In some way, zero waste pattern cutting needs to be there. It needs to come through that on the mass production side of things. And whatever it costs more to do it, to produce it, they're not going to do it. So that's the big challenge. I don't know if you know of a designer called Holly McQuillan. She's known she's done a PhD in sustainable weaving. She's very much known for sustainable fashion. She's really great. If you look her up, Holly McQuillan. She said that when she was doing her studies, she went to a factory and she said to them, I think I can make that a lot cheaper. I think I can. She actually tested out at a factory. She said, I think I can save you 20% of fabric if you just do one more seam on your garment, one more seam, and then it can fit in a different way that saves you 20% fabric. Anyway, they tried it, but they said the one seam cost more than the saving of the 20% fabric. But then you have to think, well, if it's 20%, how cheap is that fabric then in that case? Then you have to think, well, it's not in their interest to save that fabric, because then the people who are making the fabric will lose work. The people who are weaving, the people who are printing, then the printers, then you think about the people who are making the dyes and the prints and the fabrics. It goes on, knock-on effect that in some ways they like to waste, because it means everybody gets more money. What was the other thing I learned as well is that the fashion house Burberry, I'm sure you've learned this, I'm sure you've heard of this. It absolutely shocked me when I heard that they'd thrown away or burnt lots of clothes rather than giving them away or reducing the price of them, because it would harm their brand. Being the high class brand with very high prices. So you think, well, why? You've just got rid of all that clothing for nothing. So it is all about money. Yeah, it's quite shocking when you start talking about it or thinking about it. But I don't think the big fashion industry is going to take up slow fashion anytime soon.
We got a glance of the kind of students they use the design process in your new cities. Can you a bit more elaborate on the process that undergoes during this project?
Sorry, say that again. The students and their processes.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the process that they adopt for this sustainable development. What kind of a process that they do?
Well, some of the things we saw, we were giving workshops on some of the sort of more sustainable ways of working. So the students can come and pick a workshop to go to. They don't have to go to everything. But it was very much about sustainable, like natural dyeing, or working with natural sustainable yarns, or looking up for recycled yarns, even like recycled plastic yarns, working with knitting when you're knitting to fully fashion it rather than to cut it and overlock it, to have everything fully fashioned. Lots of them are working in zero waste pattern cutting now, so that everything fits either into a piece of fabric without any waste, or they're working with geometric shapes and building with that. Trying to think about, a lot of students are working with, like I said, thinking about versatility an adaptability within the garment design. So, so the hood can be, say, zipped off, or sleeves can come off, or the sleeves come off and become a belt or something like that. So they like looking at that, actually, that side of things, thinking about how, really it's quite an interest. It's quite exciting to design clothes that can change or can be worn on top of each other, and it becomes a different garment. And if you think about that, it goes back to the armor of 1500s, the medieval armor, how it always went fitted on top of each other to make the garment. And then when you take it all off, it's like, it's, well, I suppose you've got a different look, but also, yeah, that armor as well. I mean, if you think about that, that was quite sustainable because it was all made to measure. So thinking about made to measure stuff as well, and or small runs. I mean, I suppose in the 1980s we had a lot of more smaller designer labels around in the UK. So we had like Boudica, Hush and Shalane was very small then, and what else was there? Culture Shock, and there was a few of these labels, Shelley Fox, and they were in the magazines, but they weren't big like the big labels like Gucci and so on. But they've now just taken over, and those smaller ones have just gone because they couldn't keep up with it. It's like all the factories up in Scotland at the time, that I remember when they all stopped working for small companies because they wanted large numbers. So you had to order like 5,000 of something rather than 40. So they couldn't get the things made anymore in the small numbers. And they couldn't afford to have like 5,000 made, and they wouldn't want 5,000 made anyway. They wouldn't be able to sell that. So it's a different type of work. So it's working in a way that is more meaningful and more, going back to the old design, like the old ways of designing something special, rather than mass producing everything so that it's just there to wear and throw away. Sorry, I've gone off on one now. I can't remember what the question was. So I think the students are really getting that. They're really getting that. They want to design things that are interesting, and I suppose, yeah. But I mean, we're in an economy where people want to buy cheap goods still. So, if you're like a single parent with 6 children or something, you're going to go to Primark. You probably will go and buy jogging pants for £2 each. Some people will do that. And of course, but before that, we had those big Primarks and those great big companies like that. We did have charity shops. And I think the charity shops were better then, because the clothing in the charity shops were of good quality and they were cheaper. Whereas now you get really poor quality stuff in the charity shops and they're really expensive. So it's like the charity shops need to become really great again for people to go in and be excited about what they're buying, as long as they're clean and, it's secondhand, but it's, it's a way of wearing clothes. If you haven't got that much money and you can wear something that's, if you're a student, you can wear something and have a character about it.
Yeah, even when I used to, most of the time always wonder and always find it surprising, whenever you go to any charity shop, you find something very different. You've never seen that, something which is very interesting. Yeah.
Well, when I started looking at charity shops, I was about 17 years old. And you had things like tailed coats, like from the 1930s, and granddad shirts, and, things like jodhpurs, things like that for 20p or 50p, which is right next to nothing now. And you think, oh my goodness, like now it's all been brought up by the vintage stores, and they call it vintage or antiques. And then they put on really expensive prices. So, but in those days, it was before, you could buy anything from a charity shop or a jumble sale, really good things. And that was so exciting. And I'd rather that than go to a shop and buy clothes any day, because you're building your own look if the clothes are good quality. 1930s bias cut dress, fantastic. All Hollywood movie star stuff.
got one questions. Is there is little longer? There are many questions in one in chat box, please.
Oh, there is one, yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, how do you think tartan, a symbol of national pride of Scotland, not known for many outside the country, was able to inspire so many young minds to work collaboratively? Is it only an urgency or a crisis like climate change or human trafficking which can bring people together? And why is the so-called fashion giants never really doing any groundwork on such issues instead of pushing the responsibility over to young designers and students? That's a really good question. So first of all, I think the tartan is in the UK used to wear like little kilts and things. If you think about Vivienne Westwood, who's a bit of an activist designer of England, UK, there is that element of, you know, we're not just sitting down and taking it, we're going to actually make things happen. Can we try and move things and make things happen for us as students? So I think that in itself inspired students. Also, Alexander McQueen, before he died, designed a whole tartan collection as well, which was all about the rape of Scotland, basically, and you know, and that was absolutely fantastic collection. But it was about highlighting an event. It was about bringing things to bringing ideas to the public, basically. And I think this collection of tartans that Liberation Kilt Company have designed, I think that they're quite interesting because they are all bringing, they all are highlighting different causes. So you think, I believe in that, and I believe in that. And we've got some people made their own tartans, designed their own tartans from different colours altogether, from, you know, and designed a different tartan. And in fact, we had a Black Lives Matter, a Nigerian girl did a project on Black Lives Matter, and she did some fantastic jumpers with faces of guys. She's an American girl, guys that had been harassed by the police in New York, and then that she put together a knitted kilt to go with it, because it sort of worked with what she was saying. And it's so she almost designed a Black Lives Matter kilt, which was fantastic. So I think it's inspiring the using tartan, but also not saying you've got to make tartan, but just the meaning behind it. So it inspires you to research as much as you can about that subject. You know, there's so many different things that you can learn from it. So it's a real learning curve from the subject of climate change. When do you ever get to do that normally? You know about it, but you don't really read into it. And then through collecting evidence of this research, you start to do drawings, you start to have thoughts, and then together with the workshops that go with it, it all comes together as sort of a sustainable approach to working. And I think the students enjoy that. What did you say? It's only the climate. Yes, it's a shame that it is things like climate change, human trafficking, war that makes people come together. You're right, it does. And that why what have you written here? And why the so-called fashion giants really never doing the groundwork. Well, I mean, the fashion giants, they're so far about money, aren't they now? But I think, you know, we went into that age. We went into that with digitalization. I think it was when digitalization started, suddenly things started to change, and responsibilities and priorities changed. And you call it fast fashion, fast digitalization as well. You can get anything you want very quick. New set of young people who've never been there before digitalization don't know that, you know, they couldn't even envisage sitting there weaving something normally, you know. I don't know. I think it's the whole thing. The whole world has got quicker. We've all got quicker and faster, and I think it all ties in with that somehow. I mean, at the V&A Museum, there's a fantastic tapestry called the Trojan War tapestry, and you look at it, and every single thread has been woven in there by people, you know, loads and loads of years ago, a long time ago. All their lives they must have been doing that. And then you've got somebody like a current artist like Grayson Perry, I think it was. Did he design, or was it him? Somebody designed a tapestry, but he did it digitally, and it was still gorgeous, but it's not got that. It obviously the time hasn't been spent on it, so all that sort of the time, the emotions, the sort of the feelings and the skill that goes into doing something by hand has gone, because he just drew it and then it came out digitally somehow. So although that's really lovely, still it was a lovely thing. I mean, I'm just remembering this from before. It's still not the same as the original handcrafted, hand dyed, hand beaded, beautiful colors, you know, sort of original work that people do with their skills, with their hands. And I think that needs to be priced correctly. And it's obviously something that hopefully if we can push that as fashion designers, that is something to be desired rather than the fast fashion. I think I've answered that question. It is a shame when you see things changing and they go too quick, but you know, they go too quick for you to do anything about it. I don't know what young people think. I mean, digitalization is good. It's great to be, well, we wouldn't be doing this now, would we, if I couldn't see you, if I couldn't, you know, it offers a lot. It offers a lot. But you know, I suppose all printing is digital as well now, isn't it? You know, so it's not just one thing, it affects everything. So change one thing and then everything else has to change with it. So I don't know how far we've gone and whether we've gone too far to go back, but we can at least keep that young fashion designer entrepreneur spirit of graduates, you know, and then work going into their own businesses, or even if they're working for other people, hopefully they can inspire and inform the business they're working for to be more sustainable. Sorry, Jay. Hi, Jay.
Right. So I guess that there are no more questions now.
Well, I hope that was interesting, and I hope that maybe we can do the project with you one day.
Yes, it was really interesting. That was.
I don't think there are any more questions here.
No. Right. So, and thank you so much, Juliana. It was amazing. I would say that. And there is a lot of things that one can take away from your presentation. You know, it's literally each and every slide has a lot to learn and a lot to work on that. So thank you so much for your interesting and it was a really insightful presentation.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining in. It's lovely to do it. So thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Very interesting. Zero waste cutting and pattern. Very nice.
Thank you. It's really good.
One question. The print drape you made by which types of loom?
Sorry, the drape?
Print drape you made by which type of loom?
Or the looms? The print, the weaving. Well, they are table looms.
Table looms.
Yeah, they are table looms. I don't teach that, but I know there are a lot of table looms. I wouldn't know the names of them. I can find out for you if you like. And then print. Print is another thing again, isn't it? That's obviously, there's digital print and there is also the screen printing. They do both.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're encouraging the screen printing, but when you get into industry, they will be wanting digital printing. It's like even the knitting as well. The knitting is digital knitting as well, can be there. But we teach the knitting on domestic knitting machines, on industrial machines, and on shimaseki, big ones, you know, the power machines. So they've got a whole mixture of everything, and hand knitting as well, and handcraft stuff too. We tried to get in there too, so that they've got a mixture, because everybody has a different skill, different set of skills, and you know, they usually choose what they like and what they're good at to then follow through to the final year.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, participants.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.